Welcome back to another episode of Bisrat for Africa. Now, in this particular episode, I just want to play a video for you guys of one of the followers of Dr. Radebe, who basically made an AI generated video, which I thought was quite cool. You know, the way that he put that video together actually gave me some ideas. But this person made an AI video about me, saying I am basically bullying African people. So basically, this is someone who interprets the videos that I put out as bullying. And so I thought, let me make this video to maybe clarify some things about why I make the videos that I make. If you look at our description, you'll see that we seek to clarify modern misconceptions about Christianity. And in clarifying modern misconceptions about Christianity, it's important that also we clarify misconceptions even about African spirituality as well. Because if Christianity is true, it means African spirituality is false or any other spirituality. And so we have nothing really against African spirituality in and of itself, as much as we're just against any other spirituality that's not Christianity, because we believe it's false. And if we believe it's false, then we should discourage people from following it. And that's where all of what we're doing actually comes from. It comes from the fact that we believe that people are being deceived. And I genuinely believe that Dr. Radebe is someone who deceives people. I think that he's someone who knows the truth because his background is in Christianity. And I think that some of the things that he says, maybe sometimes he doesn't intentionally deceive people, but I think that there's a lot of misrepresentation that happens there, because you'll find that he'll say there are good ancestors and there are bad ancestors. There's bad spirits and there are good spirits when it comes to African spirituality. But when he's going to come to the other side, to Christianity, then straight away what he's going to do is to say there were missionaries, there was conquering. He'll go and point you to Cape Town, that when they first arrived, the first thing that they established was to put crosses, because Christianity is politics, it's conquering. Now he wants to summarize Christianity with the distortion that comes from some people, maybe that had a colonial agenda. Now he's very quick to paint everything like that. But on his side, he wants to quickly make the distinction that no, it was the bad ancestor that did this. But actually, we can't call all of African spirituality bad, because these are the good ancestors, these are the bad ancestors. Why can he not do the same thing when it comes to Christianity? So this is why we believe he's deceiving people. He knows the truth. He knows there's human beings have a good and a bad, or they have the potential to do good and bad. But at the same time, it's important that we understand that the problems on the other side are spiritual problems. In other words, when a human being does something bad, right, we can't blame God for doing it. You can't say God made me do it, because the Bible speaks against us doing bad things. The Bible wants us to love our neighbors. The Bible says turn the other cheek. The Bible talks about forgiveness and all these sort of things. The Bible doesn't commission people to conquer other people. In fact, when the disciples of Jesus saw that the Romans were capturing them, they Jesus intentionally said they must put the sword away. So conquering people is already condemned in the Bible, and so therefore, when someone does it, they're not implementing a principle of Christianity. But there's a conundrum and a problem on the other side to say, when Isangoma kills a person and uses human body parts, this is something they are initiated into. That's number one. Number two, if there are good and bad ancestors, then you can say that it was the ancestors, just the bad ones, that made you do something evil, or made the Sangomas act evil, or brought evil upon you. It's a spiritual problem on the other side. And that's why the ancestors who are practicing evil need people on this side to help them. It's not that they are able to help you. And so this is where the problem is that even when you are on the other side, you still have these problems that need human beings to come and help you. But if obviously the ancestors cannot help us, then they cannot help themselves, then how can they actually help us? So there are spiritual problems on the other side. There's problems of back to sender and all these sort of things. But why don't I just show you this video shortly and then give some thoughts about it.
It is embarrassing for an African to criticize Africans who are trying by all means to spiritual liberate Africans. It is an embarrassment where black Christians are ganging up on Africans who are trying to open the eyes of Africans to value who they are.
Now, I've just got an immediate question that comes to my mind. He's saying Christians are ganging up on these people. Where are we ganging up on people? I mean, there's like one or two channels that are reaction channels that react to this sort of stuff, but the internet is filled with attack upon attack on Christianity. And so what we seek to do is to just expose the truth. It's got nothing to do with us ganging up on anyone.
Return to their own. How do you hate an African who says, Africa, return to your roots, know your spiritual identity, Africa, accept who you are?
Again, it runs into a number of problems here. Your spiritual identity comes from God. And if our spiritual identity comes from God, then all of us have the same spiritual identity. No one has their own spiritual identity, because if you have your own spiritual identity, it means you are defining your own spirituality, because spirituality is something that's a gift. And if it's a gift, then we can't say we have our own one. It belongs to all of us. It's universal. It's something that is objective. You can't make it. You can't create it. You can't even say this is mine. All of us receive it as a gift, and it is the one thing that makes people equal, whether you are rich or poor, white or black or Indian. Spirituality, the spirit, is the one thing that has no color. So to say come back to your own Africans is, to me, very problematic. And so we're simply just exposing that. We're not against people expressing freedom of practicing their own beliefs, but we're just pointing out that it's problematic to start saying we have our own, they have their own, that then we start practicing spiritual apartheid and segregation. And this is really politics. It's really got nothing to do with spiritual matters, but really it's us versus them. The starting point is that we were colonized. And then the secondary to that is then we must find our own, right? It's a response to white supremacy. Now, if that's just, if that was just it, if you said, let's oppose white supremacy, then I'm right there by your side. I'll be there to support you. But the minute you try and define spirituality as a response to something, that's why even the idea of Africanness, Pan-Africanism, these are all just responses to racism. It's a reactionary rather than something that has just been there and always been there. Nobody ever viewed themselves as African. But immediately when there was Eurocentrism, then we must be now bringing Africanism or Pan-Africanism. This is reactionary stuff. So this is what we're pointing out. Nothing really against helping people. And I think that nothing against Africans, but I think that when we disagree as Africans, there must be a freedom for us to say we don't agree, right? So I don't think that we must all now, follow the same thing and believe the same thing just because we're all African. Because, like I've pointed out, that even within themselves, there's no agreement as to what this African spirituality is. So this is just a different perspective on it. It's not bullying.
It clearly shows that you don't know yourself as an African. You would rather support foreign religions that were brought to Africa. This gentleman, who is a...
So again, to say you don't know yourself as an African, what is an African? That's the first question I'd like to ask, because the word Africa is a Latin word. It's a word that was given to us by the colonial masters. It's a colonial name. So you are on one side fighting colonialism, on one side you are promoting it. What is an African? Nobody can actually tell me what is an African. This is just a modern word, a modern invention, not indigenous. Even the name of the channel is called the Rise of Alkebulan. No such thing. Doesn't exist. It's a made-up word made by Dr. Yusuf Ben. I keep saying it over and over. Now, when we expose these lies, we're being bullish. But really, when we're just telling people the truth and showing them the truth. Now, he talks about Christianity coming as a foreign thing. We mentioned this a couple of videos ago. The fallacy that says something is true or false on the basis of where it comes from, right? If something comes from Europe, it's true or false. If something comes from Africa, we can just assume that it's true just because it's said by an African or believed by an African. But I mean, we can expose things that he would even agree with. or he or she, because I don't know if I'm dealing with AI here, but we can expose things where Izangoma go out and use human body parts. Now, this is an indigenous creation. Should we all embrace it just because it's indigenous? See, this is where there's a problem with this idea of African spirituality. It says anything that is indigenous must be embraced, and anything that is foreign must be rejected. These are all very problematic ideas because you don't embrace everything that comes from here. You don't embrace every idea that comes from here. You don't agree with every person that comes from here. Not everyone, even within the practicing of African spirituality, agrees with each other. So why must we all agree? This is just someone also discouraging discourse amongst people.
Christian is found to be disrespecting and also degrading the dignity of Africans who are true to their African ways. He is bullying and criticizing Africans who are true to their ways of worshipping. He is bullying Africans who say, Africa, return to your roots. Africans, accept your own spirituality. A fact is a fact. Africans had their ways of life before the arrival of missionaries and their religions. It is an insult to your ancestors to criticize an African who is spiritual, liberating Africans.
Now, here we go again. The idea that Africans had their own ways. Africans definitely had their own ways, and we can maybe push this a bit further to say Africans use horses and donkeys as transport. Nobody, even on the other side, is saying, let us go back to our ways and use donkeys and horses to travel. No, they want to embrace the foreign ways, the same way they want to embrace the word Africa that is foreign. The only thing they have an issue with is Christianity. They have no issues with colonialism. They love colonialism. They love colonial words. They define themselves, calling themselves Africans, even though the name is a colonial name. And then they even define their spirituality with colonial names. These are people who are all about colonialism. The only thing that they hate is Christianity. The only thing that they have a problem with is Christianity. And never mind that Christianity doesn't even originate in Europe, but they want to define it as a European thing. But at the same time, when something is defined as European, they don't immediately reject it. They only want to reject Christianity. And for me, this is actually an indication that shows just how little value is given to spiritual matters. Is that I want the best when it comes to anything. I want the best transport. I'll take it even if it comes from Europe. I want the best medicine. I'll take it even if it's Western medicine. But when it comes to spiritual matters or spirituality, I don't necessarily want the best. I'll just take whatever. If it's just African, I'll take it. It just doesn't have to be truth. It just have to be African. Very problematic idea.
Who is restoring Africans back to their ways of life. It is an insult and a huge embarrassment. How do you hate this message?
Any kind of belief, any belief that demonizes i-roots zakho, any belief that demonizes abantu abakuzele, run away from that belief. It's dangerous for wena because iyakushintsha from who you are. Kuzwakala kahle?
So this is the problem that we're dealing with at the moment with this concept of African spirituality. Now, Dr. Radebe says any belief that calls you to be uprooted from your roots, you must run away from it. Any belief that demonizes the people who have brought you into the world. Now, this is for me one of the evidences that this is all about humanity and really not about God, because the emphasis is on people and not so much about God. It's not about connecting you to the divine, but it's about connecting you to people. And so what we need to understand is that Christianity is the one belief or form of spirituality that really connects people to their roots, because it says we came from God, who is our creator. We came from God, who is spirit, who's neither black nor white, right? And so when we connect with God, who's neither black nor white, and if we are also spirit, we connect with him via spirit, which means that blackness and whiteness and all these things have no binding on the spiritual, because I'm connected to the divine, the one who created me, that divine spirit that created everything. Christianity wants you to connect directly to the ultimate roots, where you all came from, where humanity all came from. But then when it comes to African spirituality, it's connect with your forefathers, connect with these people, connect with other human beings, right? But when we say that the ancestors are demons, we're not saying our actual physical ancestors. We don't believe that your physical and ancestors can actually come back and talk to you in this life. And that's why whoever it is or whatever it is that communicates to people, we're clear that that's not your ancestors. So we're not demonizing them. This is just a misrepresentation of what we say when we're saying ancestors. Their definition of ancestor is someone who comes back, who has some kind of a supernatural mediating role between you and God, communicates to you with visions, appears to you. Our definition is ancestor is someone who came before you, who maybe you can be grateful for a number of things. Like I'm very grateful for my ancestors, for for the things that I've learned, the traditions that I've learned. In fact, Christianity has become a part of my tradition. My grandfather was a Christian, my father was a Christian, and so these are the people who introduced me to God. So one of the ways that I can honor them is to be able to teach my children about God, right, and continue this tradition. But when we're talking about connecting to your roots, God is the ultimate person that we need to connect with. If you're not connected with God, you're dead. It's almost like a fish that gets taken out of the water. We cannot exist without God. We cannot exist without being known or without knowing God. This is fundamentally what it means to be dead, is when you don't have a relationship with God. That's what we say in Christianity. But on the other side, because people undermine God, because they have a very low view of God, for them, spirituality is just about connecting with your mother and your father, your grandmother and your relatives. And that's it. It's got nothing to do with saying, let's connect to the one that created us, the one that made us, the one in whom we find our purpose, the one who is the designer, the one who is the maker, the one who created us to be in a relationship with him. It's the most beautiful thing that you will never experience if you are in African spirituality, to walk in communion and fellowship with God, because it encourages you to walk in fellowship with other beings, with other people. But walking in fellowship and communion with the one who created you, this is the one relationship that can never be replaced. Man, you can say, I grew up as an orphan. I never knew my father or my mother. But with God, God becomes the father to the fatherless. God actually becomes, a father to those who have never had fathers. He's close to us in those moments, even when we feel like we're alone. And so this is the relationship for me that is the most important relationship. And that's what Christianity calls us to. It invites us to that relationship with the Father, which you're never going to find on the other side, because it's connect with the ancestor, connect with Imboni, connect with this, connect with that, slaughter this, slaughter that, go to that Gobela, go initiated by that one, go get initiated by that one. And in the end, where are you actually going to get a relationship with God? People are thirsty out there. They are hungry to encounter or to have a relationship with God. But instead of people pointing them to the living God, instead they point them to other people. I don't want another person. I don't want another a human being. We love our fathers and forefathers, but when we're talking about spiritual matters, primarily it's about connecting with the divine spirit that created all of us. And we can only connect to that spirit via Jesus Christ, who became man in order for him to be able to mediate between God and man. And so him being both God and man is the only one really that is able to help us in this relationship. This is Bisrat for Africa. If you guys have enjoyed this video, I want to encourage you guys to like, to subscribe, and to share. And we'll see you guys in the next video.